Okay, magandang gabi po sa mga katipon sa Pilipinas. Ito po ang ating katipunan. Muling sumasa inyo, mga tagapakinig, upang magbigay ng mahalagang impormasyon, magbigay liwanag at higit sa lahat ay makinig sa inyong mga daing at kuro-kuro hinggil sa mga problemang patuloy na nagpapahirap sa ating kalagayan at kabuhayan. Sa susunod na oras, sisikapin po namin paliwanag ang iba't ibang mga issue. Nawala. Bahagi ng ekonomiya, mga mabibigat at local and international issues na may malaking epekto sa ating buhay at kinabukasan. Ito po ang iyong katipon na si Itos Valdes, kasama si Laver at Roxanne mula sa Save the Nation Movement at Partido Politikal ng Katipunan Demokratikong Pilipino, KDP. Na nag-aanaya sa inyo na makibahagi sa ating talakayan ng pagsusuri ng mga kasalukuyang problema at paghahanap ng kaukulang solusyon. Alright. Okay. Good evening. It's Sunday once again at welcome sa ating katipunan. Today po, wala po tayong guest at hindi po natin na makakasama si Capre Valeros dahil meron siyang ginagawa. Alam mo naman, pag senatorial candidate, umiikot na yan. So maybe next week or the succeeding weeks. But tonight, maganda yung pong topic natin because we would like to talk about energy and how and what kind of energy do we need para umunlad ng Pilipinas. Kasi hindi naman overnight yun. Aside from nuclear, paano natin aatakihin ang problema ng ating pagkukulang ng energy at pagbibigay sa lahat ng Pilipino all over the Philippines. Now, first I wanted to preface this discussion by saying kita mo naman there is an ongoing sagutan ba between two candidates regarding yung pagkababa ng presyo ng langis, presyo ng electricity at yung tubig. Pero po yung discussion nila revolved around halving or pag-aalis ng excise tax ng gobyerno. Kasi daw ito ang nagpapataas ng presyo. Alam mo naman dito sa ating katipunan, we've been talking about the oligarchy and their control over our economy primarily through basic utilities. And they have been making so much money on water, electricity, and oil to the point na sila na yung may control sa buhay ng tao, buhay ng Pilipinas. At itong proposal ng mga kumakandidatong presidents, nag-aaway sila kung sino ang nauna nagsabi nun. Pero sabihin ko na sa kanila ngayon, sa inyong dalawa, tumahimik na kayo kasi unang-una pa kami, dati pa namin sinasabi yan. 3 years ago pa natin sinasabi yan. At hindi yung excise tax ang tatamaan natin, yung kita ng oligarko, hindi yung kita ng gobyerno. So itong dalawang sinasabi nilang may malasakit sa tao is actually taking out the earnings of government instead of taking out the earnings of private sector. The oligarchs, the ones who are earning so much, ang magbe-benefit doon na hindi yung taong bayan. Pero yung mga oligarko. Kasi mas mababa na ang buwis na babayaran nila. Gets nyo? So, nakakatuwa po. Tapos sila pa nag-aaway, silang dalawa nag-aaway kung sinong una nagsabi. Dalawa silang walang solusyon. Yan ang ine-expect natin na ganun klaseng pag-iisip. Kulang na kulang po. Pasensya na. Pero nauna si Chairman from the beginning that we have to bring down and take back eventually our electricity and our water, our oil, and all of the privatization efforts na tanggalin natin yan. Government, all of the basic utilities have to go back to government. Because it is only government that looks out for the general welfare. But I digress. Mamaya po siguro sa mga reactions natin, we can talk about this. But aside from that, wala silang pinapakitang economic platform. Okay? Pero marami po sa atin, marami pong tao nagsasabi, okay, ano dapat ang economic platform natin? Ano dapat ang unang-unang gagawin natin? Bakit ba? May iba nagsasabing, hindi, kailangan foreign investment para mas maraming trabaho. Tulad ng US, magiging US na tayo, or Singapore, or Japan, kasi maraming foreign investment sila. Marami naman nagsasabi rin na kahit anong gawin natin sa agrikultura natin, hindi tayo makaka-produce ng rice dahil tinatamaan tayo ng mga bagyo all the time. So no matter what, we have to import pa rin. Import pa rin ang solusyon dyan para sa taong bayan. Marami rin nagsasabi na totally, wag na tayo umutang at wag na tayo humingi ng tulong sa labas. Dito na lang kaya natin gawin. What do we do? Ano ba yung approach natin? And what makes an economy, paano natin i-measure? Paano natin alam kung tama yung polisiya ng ekonomiya para sa ating bansa? How do we know? What is the metric? Ano ba yung numero? GDP ba? Or something else? Now, we at the Katipunan ng Demokratikong Pilipino and the Philippine LaRouche Society have always said GDP is not an accurate measurement of economic performance, because GDP includes non-productive activities like real estate speculation, casino, and other things. Tapos may measure nila, yun ang ilalabas nilang GDP kunwari. Mas accurate po ang pag-measure nyo ang tinatawag na physical economy. Ano ba yung physical economy? This is from Lyndon LaRouche. Bakit kailangan ba i-separate yung tinatawag na ekonomiyang pisikal at ekonomiyang gusto ko sabihin pansugal, pero ekonomiyang pang monetary, na tinatawag na monetarist economy and physical economy. Now, I wanted to talk about it a little bit more, pero ang gagawin po natin, we will play a little video na parang crash course po, na parang maliit na klase lang about introduction to LaRouche economics, which we adhere to, which we follow here in KDP and in the Philippine LaRouche Society. Konting-konti lang, tapos i-explain natin yun, what the ideas are, para malaman po natin kung ano talaga yung measurement, ano ba tamang tingin na, ano ba dapat ang tingin natin kung ang isang economic policy ay tama, akma, o mali. Okay? So I think, Roxanne Bear, can you play the LaRouche economics video, please?
Good afternoon. Welcome to LaRouche Pack Shorts, our
Sorry.
regular or
That's the
semi-regular
other.
short feature where we discuss some of
Yung
the
isa. Oo nga, yung isa. So that's the wrong video. That's later on.
Women's rights. Hillary Clinton. She'll raise the minimum wage, take on the drug companies.
And if I have anything to say about it, the United States of America, $15 an hour.
Would raising the minimum wage to $15 per hour fix the economy? In fact, why stop there? Let's say everyone got paid at least $40 or even $100 an hour. Now, for one person, going from $10 to $100 an hour would dramatically improve your standard of living. Let's say that everyone was making $100 an hour at least. Is the U.S. economy capable of physically supporting a living standard en masse that such an income could support individually today? In other words, leaving money aside, do we have the productive potential? Do we have enough infrastructure, food, medical care availability, production, and goods to provide everyone a dignified standard of living? No, we don't. And that sort of economy can't be made simply by changing wages. To start thinking about the economy, the first step is actually to forget about money. Instead, start from this chart. Here we see human population, and there's absolutely no other living organism that has seen such a transformation in its population. All other life has what biologists call a carrying capacity, a fixed value of the number of that type of life that can live in a given area. Other forms of life consume resources around them. They don't produce them like we do. Unlike any other form of life, we can change the number of human beings that can live on this earth and how we live. So how do we do this? And what does this tell us about economics? Here in this short video, I'm going to present two basic concepts from the economic theory of Lyndon LaRouche. Those two concepts are energy flux density and potential relative population density. But first, let's look more at the central mystery of economy, that human ability to make discoveries. It really is an underappreciated miracle that our minds are capable of comprehending the unseen causes of effects in nature. No animal does this. No animal discovers principles of nature and uses it to transform its relationship to it. We demonstrate that we have such knowledge by making new things happen. We plant crops. We irrigate land. We domesticate and use animals. We produce new materials that never existed before on Earth, such as bronze or metallic aluminum. We use the heat power of coal, mined from the ground, to boil water, create steam, and run engines that are not powered by muscle, wind, or water. We turn coal, rocks, into motion. We transform the Earth and our relationship to it. We go to the moon. Unlike all other life on Earth, we are consciously not an earthly species. Think about it. These discoveries that made modern life possible, they're available to us all. But how much do we know about how these discoveries are made? How much time is spent entertaining ourselves rather than learning or acting? And in education, how much time is spent reading textbooks instead of going through the original works of the geniuses that brought us what we know today? How can we measure the economic power of these discoveries? How do they increase the productive powers of labor? This brings us to the first economic concept to discuss in this video, that was developed by LaRouche, the concept of energy flux density, which we can define as the density of power applied to the productive process in the economy. A laser is a very concentrated form of power. Think of its use in cutting materials and compare it to metal cutting instruments. That's an application in the small. Let's apply this concept over a longer time scale and in a broader way. Consider the first use of energy in the form of simple fires used for cooking and for new material transformations like boiling and bending wood, making glue for arrowheads, and heat treating stones to make chipping them easier and to make sharper tools. Then think of the higher temperatures available with charcoal fires and the ability of charcoal fire to be used to transform rocks, ore, into metals, bringing in the Bronze and Iron Ages. And then think about how engineering advancements in metals and machinery, combined with the abundance of coal and pumping technology for mining, allowed us to save forests from being burned to make charcoal, and allowed us to use coal to build the steam engine, and allow much more labor to be done with less human effort. Just think about how that discovery increased the potential living standards of humanity. Goods that could have been produced by hand only for the very rich could now be produced by powered machinery on a much broader scale, and the physical human labor required to make the essentials of life could be reduced. Then think of the concentration of energy flux density that came with the development of electromagnetism, with power plants, motors, electronic control of machinery and production. This allows another leap in the ability of the economy as a whole to support a higher potential population density and higher standards of living. Then, in nuclear processes, we find power concentrations that are 100,000 to 1,000,000 times greater than in any chemical process, greater than in any possible fuel. The as yet unmade breakthroughs in this new region of nuclear knowledge hold the potential to dramatically transform our life. Abundant power, new materials processing, space transport and travel, just to name a few. Being able to deflect an asteroid on a collision course with the Earth by the use of fusion rockets, now that would literally be a priceless investment. So increasing energy flux density is a marker of economic advance. To think about the second topic from LaRouche to cover here, let's look back at the chart from the beginning of this video. This is a chart of actual population. But now think in your mind what the human population could be at different points in time. That is, if you were to consider all the technologies, knowledge, cultural and social advancements and concepts available at a given point in history for a given civilization, could you determine its potential population density? For example, how many more people can live in a square kilometer in a civilization that has developed agriculture versus a hunting and gathering or fishing culture? So with the potential population density as a rough measure of economic advancement, let's use this concept to gauge economic value. Does a society act in such a way that it is increasing this value, allowing more people to live and to live better? Or is it, like today's transatlantic world, allowing this potential to stagnate or even decline? So real economic value, defined this way, in increasing the ability to advance the potential population density, rather than thinking of it as making money. Economic value is the ability to improve our lives and their meaning, rather than simply increasing numbers in the bank's computer. This depends on those uniquely human discoveries that change our relationship to nature, which define it. And most importantly, we can engage in that process of discovering. The advancement of society, the advancement of physical economy allows more and more people to be able to engage themselves socially in understanding and developing for themselves new concepts that drive mankind forward. Economic value lies in increasing the rate of advancement of potential population density, as seen in economic systems of increasingly higher energy flux density and greater productive power of labor. A policy that promotes this has economic value. And if it reduces the potential of our thriving, like supporting Wall Street gambling rather than investment in the future, then it has negative economic value, even if it makes a lot of money. So, with these two measures as a start, energy flux density and potential population density, we can look at the economy in a meaningful way, with metrics that free us from being fooled by money. It really all comes down to the fact that economy is based on what makes us all human, our ability to discover and implement valid ideas. The policy proposals made by the LaRouche movement over the decades have been based on this outlook, and they're now being widely adopted in the form of the World Land Bridge, the New Silk Road, the One Belt, One Road program, as well as in the Chinese lunar program, including its stated goal of developing the helium-3 fusion resources of the moon. The greater intensity of energy applied to production, transportation, and daily life that's made possible and utilized by this outlook represents an increase of energy flux density in those economies, and it certainly transforms the potential population and living standards. It's time for the U.S. to adopt a new paradigm. In fact, it's past time for this. We must again become a useful and necessary people for the world. So there's much more to learn about these policies and about Lyndon LaRouche's economic method. For more on LaRouche's economics, check out the site at lpac.co/EFD and check out these related videos.
Okay, that was from our friends at the LaRouche organization. You can log on po sa YouTube, LaRouche Pack sa YouTube, larouchepack.com, PAC, LAROUCHE, P, Papa, Alpha, Charlie.com. And sa YouTube, lahat ng videos na po pinapakita natin is there. Pero I wanted to summarize a bit. That is very simple introduction to LaRouche economics and why nagtataka yung ibang tao. But bakit napaka-confident ang KDP? Si chairman, very confident na pag binigyan ng opportunity kami sa gobyerno, malulutas natin lahat ng problema at mailalagay natin ang bansa sa tamang daan. Okay? Bakit napaka-confident? It's because of the LaRouche background. Now, there are two things na sinabi Dan sa video. Yung isa, what is the basis of the LaRouche economic model? Yung isa is the concept of energy flux density. In other words, hindi lang counting how much kilowatt hours. It's not the number of kilowatts that are there, but the quality or the intensity of the energy that can be put into a system. Kumbaga, kaya po namin sinasabi ang nuclear power ay ang pinaka mataas na density na energy given what it can do for the economy. Ano bang ibig sabihin ng energy flux density? It is kumbaga ganito. Kung kumuha kayo ng isang butter, isang stick ng butter, magnolia, frozen. Tapos kumuha kayo ng kutsara. Kutsara ang gamitin nyo. Subukan yung hatiin sa kutsara, hindi sa side, pero sa flat. Parang kung ganito. Parang ganyan. Ito ang gagamitin nyo pag ganyan sa butter. Now, subukan yung hatiin ang butter. Now, kumuha kayo ng matulis na kutsilyo. Okay? Na napakatulis. Ngayon hatiin nyo, mas madali. Ang energy flux density ay yun. Energy that is concentrated into one system is more effective and efficient para matupad ang nais natin. And nuclear power right now is the most efficient as we go. Na-discuss na po ni Chairman dati. Alala niyo po yung different modes ng energy. Nung una, ang tao, yung kapanahonan ng mga dinosaur siguro, yung tao, ang tinatawag ay hunting and gathering. Hunting and gathering, wala silang alam sa farming o sa irrigation o sa science. Lakad-lakad lang sila, hanap ng pagkain. Pag naubos na yung pagkain sa kanilang lugar, lilipat ngayon sila ng lugar. Kasi hindi naman nila alam kung tutubo na ulit yung mga prutas o yung mga nakikita nila o yung mga isda. Hindi naman nila alam yon. So tinatawag yung mode hunting and gathering. Ngayon, fast forward tayo, nakadiscover ng tao ng agriculture. Ngayon, in-apply ngayon nila ang kanilang mind na nakadiscover ng agriculture pag ang isang potato, patatas, o isang kangkong, o isang plant, kahit mais o bigas, nilagay nila sa lupa, nilagay nila ng tubig, tutubo at tutubo yon, depende sa panahon. Hindi na sila umaalis sa kanilang lugar. So ngayon, doon na sila. At nakakapagpakain ng mas maraming tao. Ngayon may population growth. Right? Yung hunting and gathering po, ilan kaya taong mapapakain mo? Depende sa mahanap mo. Kung wala kang mahanap, edi namamatay sila sa gutom. Pero because of science, because nakadiscover ang tao ng agriculture, they are now able to stay in one area and increase their population. Now, when you increase the population, mas marami pong utak, mas marami pong idea, hindi lang labor. Kasi ang tao nilikha, created in the image and likeness of the Creator, of God, and therefore has the power of ideas. Kung hindi na-discover yung taong yan, edi para siyang yung mga chongo. Hanggang ngayon, chongo pa rin. Ang tao, hindi. That's why the population grows. So from there, they discovered wood to heat. Nag-discover sila ng kahoy. Pag nilagyan ng apoy, pwedeng lutuin yung pagkain. Pwedeng hindi sila lamigin. Pwede sila dun sa loob ng kuweba na may apoy. Mas nabubuhay sila. Okay? Ngayon, fast forward ulit tayo. From wood, nagiging coal. So naka-discover sila ng uling, which is a higher level of energy. Mas maraming heat. So in line with uling, naka-discover sila na ang uling pwedeng gamitin pang railroad ng tren. Ngayon, nakakapunta-punta na sila sa iba't ibang lugar. Okay, so the economy of that little group of people is growing by leaps and bounds as they are able to sustain their population. Hindi sa kalakaran ng pera, but the ability of a population to sustain itself. That is the second concept of the LaRouche movement. The LaRouche economics, which is the relative potential population density also. How much can your economy, with what you have, your technology, sustain? How many people can it sustain? So from uli, nakadiscover na naman ng isa pang teknolohiya, langis. So it can power now lights, yung mga lamp with oil. It can now power a machines. Rail and car. Naka-invento na naman ng kotse. Nakita nila yung internal combustion engine ng kotse. Ang tao lang po nakakaisip nun. Ang langis, hindi po nagiging resource kung hindi ka nakakadiscover kung saan pwede ito gamitin. So when people say natural resources, you have to qualify. Kailangan natin tanungin, bakit? Ano bang teknolohiya natin? Kung hindi tayo nakadiscover ng oil and refining oil, nagiging resource ba yung oil? Naging resource lang po yan throughout history is when the man invented the machine which needed oil to run. Ginamit sa kotse, sa barko, ginamit sa aeroplano eventually, and running the coal plants and other things in our lives. Now, when you discover that, you also discover an ability to have that machine also fuels the mind to discover higher principles. Then you discover electricity. After you discover electricity, you discover nuclear. So you have different forms of energy that man discovers. Pero kung hindi po sila nakadiscover ng agrikultura at coal, at heat, at lahat, at oil, hindi po tayo makakadiscover ng nuclear energy. Hindi po tayo makakadiscover ng hindi po tayo makakapunta sa space, sa planets kasi walang energy, hindi kaya. Kaya sinasabi natin itong mga nagpro-promote ng mga renewable energy tulad tinatawag nilang renewable energy tulad ng solar and wind. Hindi po totoo 'yun. Napakita na po namin in how many shows before. Tinatawag yan, fraud. Scam yan, scam. Fake news yan. Yung tinatawag na ang nuclear and solar will solve all our energy problems. I wanted to show just to show you ilan yung kailangan natin na energy. Ano yung kilowatt per head. Hindi ko alam kung nabigay sa iyo yung graphic, Roxanne, pero meron. Ayan. Okay, just for our comparison, today, this is assuming totoo to, but just to show you, ang total energy needs natin is 78.3 billion kilowatt hours. Okay. They say we're producing a little bit more than that. Okay? Ang per capita, Philippines per capita consumption or need ngayon ay 714 kilowatt hours. Okay? Ang US, just for comparison, is 11,842 kilowatt hours. Okay? So it's, i-divided, ang population po ng US is 300 plus million. Tayo 100 plus. So about a third. Okay? Pero ang per capita natin, kulang na kulang po tayo. Per head ng electricity. Kumbaga, ilan yung total kilowatt hours natin na kailangan ibigay sa bawat tao, bawat Pilipino. Kulang na kulang po yan para maka-ahon or maka-survive. That's the measurement. There's another graphic I want to show just for comparison. Sige, Rox, if you have that other graphic. Okay, hindi ko lang kung nakikita nyo, no? Pero ito is fuel sources. Sources ng energy po natin. Okay? Fossil fuels ang pinaka-malaki. Okay, total is 67%. So more than two-thirds of our needs is supplied by fossil fuels. What are fossil fuels? Coal and oil. Yung sa US, ganun rin, mas mataas pa, 70%. Okay? Per capita in the Philippines is 1,185 kilowatt hours. Yung sa US, 20,000 po per capita. 20,200 kilowatt hours per capita. Yung second line po, nakalagay dyan, no? Nuclear power. Siyempre, Pilipinas, walang na-produce. So, walang porsyento yan ng nuclear power na contribute ng nuclear power sa atin. Ang US, 9% is from nuclear power. Okay? Water power, water power natin, 17%, US 7%. Mas mataas tayo sa hydro. Renewable energy, 16 and 14. 16% sa atin. Out of the whole 100% na kinukunan natin ng energy, 16% renewable. Ano ba yung renewable? Renewable is solar and wind. Yun yung sinasabi natin na fake news. Na hindi talaga. And yet, dahil sa mga policies natin, we get from that. Okay? Okay na yung graphic. Thank you, Roxanne. So what I wanted to say, itong energy mix natin, based on anong sinabi ko earlier about ang economy is not based on how much money you have in the system, but it's based on how much citizens it can support. That's real economics. That's LaRouche economics. That's the physical economics. So kung nakita niyo po itong chart natin na per kilowatt is only 714, hindi talaga tayo magtataka kung bakit marami sa atin ay hindi makakain, walang electricity, walang tubig, mahal ang tubig, at eventually mamamatay ng mas maaga. Dahil wala tayong ginagawa to solve this per kilowatt level. Again, going back to sinabi nga ni LaRouche, na it's about discovering and implementing new technologies for your citizen to be sustained. Alala niyo po yung hunting and gathering. Yung paikot-ikot lang isang pamilya sa gubat, maghahanap ng pagkain. Ilang kaya ang mabubuhay ng ganyang klaseng ekonomiya? Pero once you discover and implement new ways to raise the general welfare of people, you will be able to support more people. And lahat na nagsasabing overpopulation ay fake news rin. Yan ang scam, yung tinatawag natin overpopulation. No such thing as overpopulation. It's because it's underproduction and the policies, economic policies that kept us to where we are. Okay? So, going back to what we needed, ano bang klaseng economy din ang kailangan natin gawin? Number one, we have to raise our per capita energy production. How do we do that? By nuclear power, which is the most advanced. Nandiyan na siya. ba't di natin gamitin? Right? Sabi ni Chairman, minimum right of the next how many years, gawin na natin 10 ang i-construct. All of them can be done sabay-sabay all over the country, lalo na sa Mindanao. When you have much energy, saka ka lang makakaplano ng national railway system na hindi ka nagbabayad ng kataas-taas ng electricity sa Meralco. Right? So, ang gagawin natin, sabihin mo, 10 muna for the next 6 years. Sabay-sabay construction yan all over the Philippines. Makikita nyo po, lahat ng tao mabibigyan ng electricity. Mabibigyan ng lahat ng maliliit na baryo, lahat ng maliliit na distrito sa buong Pilipinas. Mabibigyan ng ilaw ang bawat tahanan, mabibigyan ng electricity. Ang lahat ng eskwela, kahit 24/7 mag-aircon sila, okay lang. Hindi po mahal. Okay? Kayang-kaya natin gawin yan. Tapos, lahat ng negosyo, lahat ng kumpanya, since marami tayong nuclear power plants sa Pilipinas, bababa ang presyo ng electricity, lahat ng kumpanya, giginhawa. Lahat ng kumpanya makakaahon, makakabigay ng mas malaking budget para sa mga empleyado, para sa mga gawain, pang-expansion. At makakaplano na po sila far ahead. Pero sabihin mo, Itos, paano yan? Hindi naman natin kontrolado yung presyo ng electricity. Yun nga. That's why we're saying Article 12, 17 to 18. We, as Chairman likes to say, we've been in a national emergency situation even before COVID. Ngayon lalo na. Right? We've been here already. Nandun dati pa dapat i-implement yan. Okay? And pag nakuha na natin yan ulit, basic utilities, makakaplano na po ang gobyerno para sa 25 years, 50 years plan. Paano ka National Railway Program kung mahal pa rin yung kuryente? Paano ka makakaplano ng National Agriculture Development Program, agriculture production, kung wala kang energy? Diba? How will you irrigate your fields? How will you develop new crops kung wala kang energy? Kung hinihintay mo lang yung ulan o nagdadasal ka na umaraw ulit. With nuclear power, with enough energy, you can plan regardless of the weather. Para hindi maging weather lang. Diba? Yun eh. Kaya napaka-confident po kami kung kami bigyan ng pagkakataon. And we need to do this for 10 years. It has to be done like this. It has to be done. On top of that, kailangan po natin gawin lahat ng production, hindi yung energy natin kailangan geared towards, kumbaga, yung graphic na pinakita ko sa inyo, 714 per kilowatt hour lang yung per capita, right? We have to make that 70,000 per capita. Okay? Just to see, para nagpe-prepare tayo sa future, para pinaghahandaan natin yung future natin. Hindi tayo magkakaroon ng sariling kotse, sariling brand. Bakit? Paano kaya ginawa ng Toyota, ng Kia, ng mga Hyundai, yung kanilang mga kotse, Mitsubishi? Nag-umpisa ng mga yan na heavy industry, steel industry, chemical industry, manufacturing lahat. Sa Pilipinas, walang manufacturing. Ang gusto nila gawin sa Pilipinas, tayo yung OFW ng mundo. Kasi wala silang plano, wala sa mga presidenteng gusto maging presidente ngayon. Puwera si chairman, syempre. Ang mga ideya or vision of Philippines 25 years from now. Ang iniisip lang nila, makaupo sa Malacanang. Tapos bahala na si Batman. Pagwapo na lang. Pero yung planong to lay the groundwork, to lay what the basis should be for 25 years development, wala sila. Kasi hindi po nila iniisip ang kinabukasan. Ang iniisip lang nila sarili nila. At obvious to sa mga statements nila ngayon. Pasensya na sa mga natatamaan, pero totoo po yun. Nakakadismaya po na puro pagwapo lang sila sa press, magandang sinasabi sa social media, puro pa-cute, pero wala silang pinaplano. Ang plano nila, ang gagawin nila, base sa mga sumusuporta sa kanila, sasabihin nila, una, papalitan nila ang konstitusyon. Sasabihin nila, kailangan palitan na yan, luma na yan, buksan na natin para sa foreign investment. Lahat sila, yun ang policy. Garantisado po. Kami lang sa KDP ay hindi. Pero hindi lang po tayo dito na nag-iisip ng ganyan. In the US, again, yung LaRouche movement, sinasabi nila kahit ganyan na yung United States, kulang na kulang pa rin daw ang investment sa kanilang infrastructure, sa kanilang energy para sa kapakanan ng mga citizens nila. Imagine na yung US na. Again, I'd like to play another video from the LaRouche Pact. This time it's an interview of the Science and Economics head of LaRouche Pact, si Bruce Director, at meron siyang ini-interview na kanyang ekonomista na parang ano ba kailangan natin gawin sa US? Kasi ang infrastruktura nila nasisira na rin. Kasi siguro 60-70 years na hindi na napapalitan, hindi na inaayos. Pati yung energy grid nila bumababa na dahil sa policy rin. So sila, they're also working along the same lines as us kung ano dapat ang kailangan gawin. Pakinggan po natin tapos usap ulit tayo.
Good afternoon. Welcome to LaRouche Pack Shorts, our regular or semi-regular short feature where we discuss some of the principles and applications of LaRouche's ideas in economics to our current situation. We're joined once again with Brian Lance, who is a longtime associate of Lyndon LaRouche. He's done a lot of economics research. And we've been talking in the last few shorts about the infrastructure project and some ideas about how to get out of the current economic crisis. And Brian's been emphasizing that this has to be done from the standpoint of thinking about the future. And of course, we've witnessed some of the ridiculous ideas coming out of the Biden collective in the recent period, which seems to all be focused on the idea of coming up with a economic policy that's based on sustainability. But we talked in the past about the general ideas about technology and so forth. And last week we talked about the space program. And Brian has a lot to say about the energy situation. And what we want to explore today is looking at it from a completely different standpoint than what either the Biden Green New Deal perspective is, or sort of the loyal opposition coming from a lot of the Republicans, and really from the standpoint of optimism versus pessimism. In that regard, I like to refer people to the speech that President Trump made at Davos, which is embedded in the article that's up on the LaRouche PAC website by Barbara Boyd called Our Fall Offensive, in which President Trump makes exactly that point, that the doomsayers that we see around the Green New Deal have been predicting collapse forever. And so you have a situation where there's a fundamental assumption that's embedded in the Green New Deal and these kinds of ideas. And what's being lost is, well, what would an energy policy look like that was based not on trying to sustain things on an increasingly decreasing level, increasingly lower level under the guise of so-called sustainability, but actually one which is based on investments in energy production from the standpoint of increasing the productive powers of labor. So Brian's done a lot of research in that area and has some thoughts on it, which I'd like him to review with us right now.
Well, all right, I'll try to be brief. I think, first of all, 2 weeks ago, we briefly talked about reshoring. And I know for some people that's a foreign concept, or they don't know exactly what that refers to. And reshoring is bringing American manufacturing back to the United States. And there's a degree to which that can be done. But as we said then, and this is directly related to energy, is where is that manufacturing going to be located? The grid is now at max, the national grid. That's why we have this continued threat of brownouts and blackouts and all the rest, which the doomsayers themselves, the IPCC and the Greens and so forth, have brought on. So energy, we need 200 gigawatts. Just to give an idea, 200 gigawatts, that's 200 big nuclear power plants. But we also, as I'm going to get into a bit, we need natural gas and coal to start with as well. 200 gigawatts would allow us to triple the manufacturing base of the United States, not just based on reshoring, but building up new industries, new supply chains here in the United States that would go into building those nuclear power plants, building those natural gas plants, and of course, from there, moving on to fusion energy.
Well, that's quite an ambitious amount. Now, okay, just so give people a sense of it, how does that compare to, you're talking about 200 gigawatts more energy, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And how's that compare to, say, what's coming out of these crazy ideas of the Biden and the Green New Deal and so forth? They're not really talking about producing more energy, are they? They're just talking
no.
They're just talking about replacing existing fossil fuel production with lower density energy forms like wind.
Digging a hole and filling it in. And we come out with nothing added, but subtracted, because we've dumped all of those human resources into the ground, so to speak. In fact, with if you buy into the decarbonization idea and this idea of literally putting CO2 into the ground, that's what you're doing. You're digging a hole and filling it in. Quite the opposite is what's required. We have about 1,200 gigawatts of electrical power capacity in the United States right now. And what the Biden collective has proposed is simply to spend well over $1 trillion to build wind and solar to replace existing power plants, coal, natural gas, and since they're not so big on nuclear energy as well, they're going to let the clock run out on that, it looks like. So $1 trillion dumped down the hole, we could build potentially, based on what South Korea does, what China does today, we could build 200 gigawatts of nuclear power for roughly somewhere around $400-500 billion.
This shouldn't have to take 10, 12 years for each plant like it is right now. If we
right. South Korea builds them in 51 months. The last two plants they built. So that's 4 years and 3 months. heat.
And they're able to do that with modularization and standardized design and stuff, right?
Yeah, standardization, almost an assembly line approach. You're right, Bruce. Yeah.
So that would actually give us an increase in electrical production, because what the Green New Deal people are talking about is actually the same or less electrical production, but actually increasing the requirements for electrical production, because they're talking about electric vehicles and all this other.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that. Electrical vehicles, it's estimated, I'll take a low figure on this, 15 to 20% increase in the power grid to convert the United States to, say, 80% electrical cars. That's to charge the cars. And there's a lot of problems in that. Overloading neighborhood transformers. I mean, it's up and down the line. But just if you take the gross amount, that's if you take 15% increase, I'm just looking for the figure. That's 240 gigawatts, or no, 180 gigawatts for 15%. For 20%, it's 240 gigawatts. So instead of going to tripling manufacturing, you're doing all of that to just dig a sinkhole.
So in order to expand manufacturing, you can't do it without going in the direction you're talking about. You're talking about nuclear, coal, natural gas, and where does the other area of production of fossil fuels come in on this, or how does the coal and
Sure.
fossil fuel? Because Biden's trying to shut that down too.
Yeah. Well, look, this is the CO2 front. Ben Deniston yesterday, that's August 14th for people that might be going to our website later, went through an excellent discussion of this. CO2 has nothing to do with changes in temperature. In fact, changes in temperature sometimes changes CO2. It's the other way around. But you look at coal, clean coal. Clean coal used to be defined as coal to which additives were added, and it took out the oxides, sulfur and nitrogen oxides, and took out the mercury. And there's plants running today, and that's fine, and that's clean coal. But then the game, it was a bait and switch. Then they said, "Oh no, it's CO2 that's bad. It's not mercury, the oxides, etc. It's CO2." Well, I mean, this is ridiculous. We, with advanced coal power plants, referred to, if I can find the term here, integrated gasification combined cycle coal plants, which is not unusual these days. Those plants are clean, provide energy, and can be rapidly built. And we have the available coal supply. Natural gas, similar, what's called combined cycle rather, gas plants. In both cases, these advanced plants, both for coal and natural gas, are two stages. And the heat, waste heat out of the first is recycled to boil water and turn a steam engine, a steam turbine, and it produces additional electricity. So this can be done very effectively in a very clean fashion, and we should go ahead and do it because, frankly, starting from scratch, building 200 nuclear power plants, it's going to take a while for us to ramp up. And we need more power to drive the manufacturing, to provide the energy for the supply chain that will then build the nuclear power plants. So it's a step function kind of approach.
So the approach you're talking about is actually putting investments into energy production, which actually has an anti-entropic effect of increasing the productivity of the economy and the productivity of labor.
Exactly.
And we have the resources here, the coal, natural gas resources right here in the United States that can be developed, which also is a big boom to the U.S. economy. It's kind of ridiculous that Biden is shutting down fossil fuel production in the United States and then begging OPEC to produce more oil. I mean, there's a big need for fossil fuel production worldwide, And there's a few places which have an ample supply of it: Russia, the Middle East, the United States, and so forth. And it should be directed towards the areas that can actually increase their manufacturing, like what you're describing, which benefits the entire world economy in addition to the United States.
And part of that, as you know, is turning the U.S. into an capital goods exporting nation again. You mentioned modular. We can export modular nuclear power plants. The world's going to need to increase its energy consumption 7-fold, 10-fold to bring it up to U.S. standards and beyond. So we're needed to help do that. That's export market. So we completely reverse our current trade deficits. We manufacture here in the United States, and we reassert our role in the world.
And we need to produce a ton of electricity to do that. We can't.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Now, I want to I think that's a really good perspective, but I want to set the stage for our next discussion, which is the future. These technologies, coal, natural gas, and of course, there's new innovations that can be made in those areas like magnetohydrodynamics and so forth. And nuclear fission, but these are all well-developed technologies. In some cases, they're 100 years old. Nuclear power's 60, 70 years old, is well known. But we're going to need some completely new technologies, which make a qualitative shift. And maybe you could just list some of those things, and then when we get together next time, we can actually get into them in more detail, because the future doesn't end with just 200 megawatts or gigawatts.
Not by any electricity. This is optimistic, and people should have fun digging into this and making some discoveries for themselves. It's fun. It's fun to sort this business out. Fusion energy. We have the National Academy of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, that we can have nuclear fusion power. In their case, they're talking about deuterium, tritium, to the grid starting in 2040, building it by 2035, on the grid by 2040. And they lay out a very specific set of pathways, 4 different teams, 4 different approaches, narrowing it down, a kind of Manhattan Project approach to getting it done. But then as well, there's Helion Energy up in Everett, Washington. They're taking a different approach. Very exciting, the Stellator approach, and they're using helium-3 and producing helium-3 as part of that process. Who knows? There's dozens of private projects on fusion. There's the Skunk Works project by Lockheed Martin going on now in Southern California. They have a compact fusion reactor they're working on, which could be online, could be out and available sometime before 2030. They're not making a projection right now, but that's certainly a possibility. And then you have inertial confinement fusion, of course, where you use lasers targeting a pellet. And with the breakthroughs in the chirp lasers that we talked about just for a moment last week, these advanced lasers that in a fraction of a second can deliver enormous power in a very small area, means that the potential for inertial confinement fusion as another approach are within reach. Otherwise, there's the new advanced nuclear sodium reactors, sodium cooled. There's anyway, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, that's a big subject, and I'm glad you whet people's appetite for it, because what we have to do is dedicate a whole short to really exploring this, so that people see that the ambitious program which you outlined in the beginning is really just the stepping stone to build up the U.S. economy, so that we can really kick it into high gear with these really advanced types of science and technology. So thanks a lot for joining us today, and look forward
to be here.
Forward to the next short, where we'll take you even further into the future.
All right, yun yung discussion nilang dalawa, no? Bruce Director and from our friends at the LaRouche organization. Isa-summarize ko lang po, nag-discussion sila with the current policy po ng kanilang presidente, presidente na nakaupo sa White House ngayon na si Joe Biden, na gustong tanggalin lahat ng mga fossil fuels, mga coal nila, oil, gano'n. Tanggalin daw nila sa grid. Kasi papunta na daw dapat sa tinatawag na sustainable environmental economy. Yung green economy ang sinasabi. Hindi po yan nag-iiba dito sa mga policies ng mga sinasabi natin mga environmentalist at marami sa ating mga senador at congressman na gusto rin ganyan mangyari. Na wag na tayo mag-produce, wag na tayo mag-invest sa nuclear power. Dito lang tayo sa mga hangin, windmill, tsaka solar para environmentally safe daw at environmentally compliant tayo. There's one thing that anyway, so nag-discuss sila kung ano ba kailangan, ilang kilo, hindi na nga kilowatt ang pinapag-usapan nila, gigawatts per capita ang pinapag-usapan nila, hindi na kilowatts. Ito daw ang kailangan ng US, na matagal na daw ang kailangan nila. Essentially, ang sinasabi nila, siyempre maling-mali yung mga policy ng leadership ngayon ng US dahil tinatanggal nila, instead of tanggalin ang mga fossil fuels at nuclear power plants, ay dapat mag-invest pa, doblehin pa yung capacity nila mag-produce ng energy. Kasi kung hindi daw, hindi mabubuhay ang population eventually. Pababa na yung papunta. Tayo, bumaba na yan after the 80s, 70s, 80s, gumanon na. Pababa ng pababa. Pero yung mayaman, mga oligarko. Kasi binigay natin ang ating resources, our utilities, our means to survive towards to the oligarchs, and we have practiced a policy of investment, non-investment into these same technologies and our infrastructure. Kaya po napapansin nyo lahat privatization. Yung ating DPWH secretary is the son of one of the biggest housing developers sa Pilipinas. Hindi ba conflict of interest yun? Di po ba? Sa palagay nyo ba walang inside information na nagpapalitan sa kanila kung saan ang gustong i-develop ng gobyerno, doon tayo bibili ng lupa? Hindi ba? So obvious naman na ang what's happening now is the same as what's happening sa US. At may mga patriots tulad namin, tinatawag na patriotikong Pilipino. Kami lang po, Katipunan Demokratikong Pilipino ay may tatawag na mga patriotiko. Same thing sa US, may mga patriots yan na sinasabi, hindi natin pwedeng ibenta yung ating bayan. Right now, sa Pilipinas po, nabenta na natin. Nabenta na natin sa oligarko na may mga kasama o partners na oligarko sa ibang bansa. Sila ang kumikita. Napag-usapan na natin kung paano kumita itong electricity. Itong Meralco, ilang trilyon. Napag-usapan na natin yung tubig. our Vice President, si RJ Abellana. Ilang taon na niyang pinaglalaban yan sa consumer about yung mga water rates na yan. Na dapat na nga, hindi dapat binigay yan sa pribado. Pero nung binigay nila, dapat hindi pa nila itinupad ang agreement with government. Ngayon, yung mga henyo na mga gusto maging presidente, nag-aaway sila kung sinong nauna nagsabi, bawasan natin ang buwis na gobyerno. Paano kikita pa ang gobyerno? Binabawasan mo pa yung buwis, pero yung kita ng mga oligarko, hindi mo babawasan. Maling-mali po. And I wanted to, dito sa programang ito, very simple, and we can expound on it. We will start to lay out our Katipunan ng Demokratikong Pilipinong platform and why we think that this is the platform that will save the Philippines, that will save the future generations. And we don't need to change the Constitution. We don't need to liberalize. We don't need economic liberalization to do that. Hindi natin po kailangan ng tinatawag na foreign investment na tinatawag na speculative lang na pupunta lang sa kamay ng mga oligarko. Okay? And sigurado po kami makakahanap po tayo ng patulong in other countries that will help us invest and grow together. Dahil hindi ibig sabihin kung Pilipino ka o patriotiko ka, kaaway mo na yung buong mundo. Hindi nga eh. Kasi nirerespeto mo rin na ang mga ibang tao sa ibang bansa, gusto mo, kausap mo mga patriotiko nila para mag-usap kayo kung saan tayo makakapagtulungan with both our peoples on how we will improve both our economy. How will it be tinatawag na mutually beneficial? And I want to, before we start reading our text messages, I want to emphasize, napapansin nyo ba, again, from the start, sabi namin, ang economics ay hindi po pera. Money can be part of an economy, but it shouldn't be the biggest part. It is probably one of the smallest parts of an economy. An economy has nothing to do with how much money you have in the system. It has everything to do with how your economy is able to sustain to a certain degree your population. Kung ang populasyon natin ay 95% naghihirap, actually more. But sabihin mo ng 90%, sabihin mo 90%, halos lahat naghihirap kasi hirap ang buhay, hirap makaano. Ibig sabihin, your economy is not fulfilling its role to help the population. Ibig sabihin, mali ang mga policy niyo. Okay? Mali yung mga tinatawag nating eksperto, mga sinasabing dalubhasa na isang libro yung mga degree sa kahit anong universidad sa mundo. Pero mali pa rin sila. Kasi ang tinitignan nila is the monetary side only. Yan ang training po nila. Ang kailangan tignan natin is the physical side. Ano ba yung mga aspeto ng physical na ekonomiya? Isa nito, pagkain, tubig, electricity, infrastructure in terms of rail, road, dams, everything else, energy. And we can compute that per capita. Kung baga, 100 million Filipinos, ano bang kailangan nila sa food? Sabi nga nila yung pinaka-ideal is 2,500 calories per head. Per capita, bawat Pilipino. Pag bumaba doon, may deficit. Ibig sabihin, kulang. ang binibigay natin. Ano ba yung ideal na per capita level ng electricity per capita? Ano ba yung ideal na per capita level ng energy as a whole? Infrastructure. How many rail lines, length of rail per capita? Ano ba yung ideal? Pwede po natin i-compute yun. Dapat yun yung metric kung maganda ba ang ginagawa niyo sa ekonomiya o hindi. Hindi sa numero, kundi sa gawa, kundi sa infrastructure. Hospital, healthcare. Ilan ba ang hospital, public hospitals? Hindi na natin i-question yung quality, yung kalidad, pero ilan ba yung hospital sa isang bansa for the population? Tapos, sa hospital na yon, ilan ba yung hospital beds ang nandyan? Ibig sabihin, hospital beds, aalagaan ka. Tapos pwede natin i-compute, ilan ba yung gamot para sa populasyon? Per head, per capita. Ganun po yung approach namin. Ganun po yung approach namin sa LaRouche movement. Kasi yan pwede natin ibilang kung nagde-develop pa tayo. And like LaRouche said, relative potential population. Ibig sabihin, how much can your country grow? How much more can your population grow with your economy? An economy, a basket, kumbaga, electricity, sobra-sobra para sa population mo. Pagkain, infrastructure, then education, health, lahat. Kung sobra-sobra yan, ibig sabihin may lugar pa para umangat yung population natin na masusustain natin. Hindi yung mga binibilang-bilang na GDP at yung mga kailangan hiramin sa World Bank. Hindi na po yun. Tawag yun scam. At napapansin nyo po, lahat ng senador, lahat ng tinatawag sa NEDA, lahat po ng tinuturo sa mga economics department ng mga eskwelahan natin. Yan ang tinuturo. Ano sinasabi nila? Masyadong maraming Pilipino. Overpopulated ang Pilipinas, kaya maraming mahihirap. Again, ang sinasabi po namin dito is kulang pa ang population ng Pilipinas kung i-implement natin yung gusto natin. Magiging sobrang dami, hindi na tayo magiging OFW. Maraming mag-OFW sa atin. Yan ang vision po namin sa KBP. Yan ang gusto namin mangyari at pwede nang gawin. Makaka-export na ulit tayo ng rice and other goods if we do it properly. Corn, fish, aquaculture po. Lahat pwede naman gawin, nandun na yung teknolohiya. Kailangan lang yung policy is geared towards that. Ang sinasabi kasi nila sa atin, masyado tayong marami, dapat kontrolin niyo yung population. Wag na kayo mag-produce ng agriculture. Wag niyo nang lakihan yung agrikultura, production sa agriculture. Bumili na lang kayo sa Vietnam, kunyari. At tapos, ang Vietnam bibili naman sa inyo ng ibang goods. Yan ang globalization. Pero sino nagko-control niya? Sino nagko-control ng salapi? Sino nagko-control ng kalakaran na yan? Hindi ang Pilipino. Right? Kaya yung mga mahilig mag-claim na patriotiko sila, kaya gusto nila na foreign investment para. Kung tayo ngayon galit sa oligarko sa Pilipinas, ano pa kaya yung papapasukin natin mga oligarko na mas dihamak, na mas malaki at mayaman at gahaman sa atin. Yan po ang kalaban ng bawat patriotiko ng bawat bansa ngayon. Yan yung mga oligarko nila. Kaya nagkakagulo ngayon sa mundo. Kahit hindi pinapakita sa mainstream media kasi mas gusto nila ipakita yung sarsuela ng eleksyon natin. Ang mga tao sa mga ibang bansa, France, Ireland, Italy, lahat, Australia, lumalaban sa mga lockdown at hindi sila pumapayag na mandatory yung bakuna. Hindi talaga sila pumapayag pero wala tayong nakikita sa ABS-CBN, sa Rappler, sa GMA, wala silang pinapakitang gano'n. Ang pinapakita lang po nila, depopulation. At yan ang gusto ng mga oligarko ng mundo. Konting tao para hindi na sila magkakaproblema. Sila na mamumuno pero konti lang yung tao. So anytime you hear, pag nakita nyo magtalumpati itong mga gusto maging presidente at ang sinasabi nila kailangan overpopulation tayo, kailangan family planning, kailangan mandatory yung sinasabi nilang bakuna. Doon alam nyo na hindi talaga sila patriotiko at hindi nila wala silang planong lutasin. Ang gagawin nila, hihiram sila ng maraming pera na naman. Tapos, papakyut sila for a while. Meantime, pababa at pababa yung antas ng buhay ng tao dito sa Philippines. Only KDP has the solution. And we've been trying to say it for the longest time dito sa Ating Katipunan and yung mga Facebook channels namin kahit nasususpend na kami ilang beses. Sasabihin pa namin yung totoo. Tayo lang po ang nagsasalta. Kami lang ang may solusyon. We have the economic platform that no other presidential candidate dares talk about. We're the only ones po. And if given the chance to be in leadership position po, makikita nyo talaga ang gagawin namin para sa bansang Pilipinas. Mararamdaman nyo po right away. So, so sana po. Next week, we will try to have a wrap-up. So, again, i-wrap up natin tong discussion natin on economics. Economics is not, wag kayo po makinig at wag kayo po matakot makipagdebate tungkol sa economics. Ang ekonomiya ay hindi pera. Ang ekonomiya ay hindi GDP. Ang ekonomiya ay ang general welfare ng taong bayan. Okay? Affordable by electricity, yung pagkain, yung gamot, yung eskwela, school, yung pamasahe, affordable ba lahat yan? Tubig, affordable ba? Hindi ba dapat libre na yan sa taong bayan? Kaya naman eh. Nandiyan naman yung teknolohiya. Diba? So anybody that talks, huwag kayo po matakot. Sabihin mo, makipagdebate kayo, tapos sabihin mo, makinig kayo sa Ating Katipunan every Sunday. Makipagdebate kayo dito sa program. Hindi kami takot makipag-discussion about economics. And it's not about money. It's not about mga nararamdaman nyo na ba? Trilyones na yung budget natin. Yung gobyerno, budget ng gobyerno, trilyones na. Nararamdaman nyo ba? Alam mo saan nyo nararamdaman? Yung tumataas ang bilihin. Tumataas ang tubig. Tumataas ang kuryente. At tumataas ang healthcare ng gamot. Ibig sabihin na wala ng solusyon. This government did not have any solutions. just like the previous government did not have any solution. And the government before that, ang solusyon nila, benta. Benta, bigay sa mayaman. Sila na magpapatakbo. Bahala na yung taong bayan, pasensya na lang. Yun po. So I wanted to end with that. Siyempre, we can continue the discussion next week. Kung next week po, kung inabuti ni Chairman to drop by and we can interview him again on economics issues, maganda po yan, a discussion on our economic platform. Or we can have, if our candidate, Captain Ray Valeros, is available again, we will invite him next week to join us. But that's the end of our show for today. Now we can go on and start reading the reactions of our audience in radio and online from YouTube and on Facebook and on DZXL. Okay. All right. Good evening. Mirna Alvaran, good evening, watching from Caloocan. Norlin Casimero, gandang gabi po, watching from Kuwait. God bless you. Thank you. Sir Soberano, mabuhay Sir Itos, KDP, kandidato ng Katipunan, Sir RJ, Captain Valeros, Attorney Sigyon, at Chairman Sugilon, at Chairman Butch Valdes. I think Attorney Aaron is running under another party. But still, maganda pong intention niya sa bayan. Lahat na po tayo, isa lang yung intention to fix all of this. And we are all patriots. Mary Mueller, magandang gabi po, always watching from Germany. Guten Tag. Bien Borge, magandang gabi kapatid dito. Gayon din kay Kuya Butch. Correct. Joe Kahimat, bakit sa panahon ni President Marcos nakapag-export ng bigas? Kung bagyo ang idadahilan na hindi tayo magkakaroon ng sapat na bigas, bakit nagawa niya noon sa palakasin ng agrikultura, particular sa palay at mais? Sa tingin ko, kulang ang suporta lang ng gobyerno sa mga masasaka. Kaya gano'n. Ganito yan, no? There has to be a policy. There has to be a plan sa agriculture. Maganda yung Joe Kahimat, you brought it up. Look, you have to be able to, ang ekonomiya, hindi lang isa lang. Kunyari, pataasin natin yung agricultural production. May policy tayo. Tulungan natin yung mga magsasaka at talaga may national government program tayo na increase yung production. Okay. Paano mo gagawin yan? How will you increase 4 times? Posible po. But how will you increase kunyari, times 4 yung production natin level? Kasi kailangan actually kailangan times 10. Pero kayang gawin. Pero hindi lang dahil sa pagsuporta sa mga maliliit na magsasaka. Kailangan national development program po yan. Kailangan there is really a government program not just to give small farmers na pribado na mag-aangat. Kailangan programa talaga. Tapos, kailangan national irrigation, kasama yung National Irrigation Agency. Why? Because you have to irrigate the farmlands. Correct? And to irrigate it, you need electricity. So you need steady and strong supply of electricity na hindi mahal. So you need a National Energy Development Program. Okay, so you are able to put that up. Meron ka ng nuclear power feeding the water, yung irrigation, tapos tataas yung yield. Pwede naman i-compute yan. Paano ngayon ang mga palay na yan? Paano mo dadalhin sa merkado o paano mo dadalhin sa buong Pilipinas yan? Kailangan may infrastructure ka na dinidevelop. Pribadong sektor ba, yayaman lang yung middleman. Kung produce ka dito, dadami yung middleman mo, yung naglalako, sila yayaman. Tapos babalikan nila yung production, sasabihin nila, oy, babaan mo presyo mo kasi mahal na dito. Di sila yung nagiging oligarko. Sila yung nagiging makapangyarihan. in terms of this agriculture. That's what happened. Ang tamang gawin is you increase the capability of the production of agriculture, aquaculture, lahat. Pero you have to invest in infrastructure also for each of those areas to be able to be brought to the Filipinos. Meaning government has to invest in rail. You have to invest in freezers. Yung malalaking na freezer para yung mga isda papunta doon. Hindi lahat pribado yan. Dapat gobyerno ang gumagawa yan. Pero sa freezer, again po, sa freezer, tsaka rail, tsaka highway, tsaka lahat na barko around the country, dapat may mga barkong umiikot dyan, puro palay ang laman o puro agriculture products. Pero kailangan mababa yung halaga ng electricity. Kailangan kontrolado rin natin yung langis. Kailangan kontrolin natin yung mga toll, yung mga highway, yung mga rail. Di ba? So when you say during Marcos time ganito, you have to look at also not just na nakapag-export po tayo. You have to look at ano yung situation around na allowed us, permitted us that we were able to have a surplus. Baga mag-export tayo, surplus, yung sobra. At mababa pa rin yung presyo para sa mamamayan natin. Kasi ang unang prioridad ay siyempre yung Pilipino, mamamayan natin. So magandang usapan po yan, and next week maybe we can talk about it. Yung may mga tao tayo, mga ideya ng mga dating ekonomista ng United States, panahon ni Lincoln at lahat, ito rin ang sinasabi about agriculture, against free trade, and against for production and all of this. So maganda pag-usapan yun. Okay. Next. William Laguno, ganda ko Sir Itos at sa mga KDP. John Cyril Onato, good evening Sir Itos and people here in KDP. Dito sa FB. Sir Itos, hanggat nandyan pa mga swapang oligarko, lalong maghihirap ang ating bansa. Kanilang ginagawang modus para magkapera sila. At wala silang pakialam kung naghihirap tayo habang sila busog na nakakaban ng bayan. Worse, isinusulong nila illegal, discrimination, unconstitutional, gaya ng gawin mandatory bakuna dito sa ating bansa. Tapos, ginigipit pa nila mga ayang bakuna at dinidiscriminate. Correct. Sad to say, our government officials, including presidents, are dumb and stupid because they're not serving us. What they're doing is communism at totalitarianism. Tapos pinulitika nila itong scamdemic. Anyway, God bless po sa inyo watching here from camp. I agree with you, everything po you said. The thing is with businessmen po, ang gusto lang nila sa buhay, kumita. By itself, hindi naman masama yun. Pero dahil pinayagan natin pumasok sila sa ating mga basic utilities and health, doon sila kumikita. So ang plano ng KDP is to always, we have an economic program. We will also need their help because they are big businessmen who are used to running big corporations. But we will directed them into other industries that are not that sensitive to the lives of Filipinos. Lalagay natin, sabihin natin, guys, ito, usapan natin. Ito gagawin nyo. Ito, dito ka. Pwedeng chemical. Ito, dito ka. Pwedeng steel. Magtulungan tayo. Kikita pa rin kayo. Pero, kukontrolin namin yung basic utilities. Tubig, electricity, langis. Kasi yan ang sensitive sa tao eh. Kasi that will affect prices of goods. Food, rice, health, at lahat. Now, if we control this, alam naman nila yon. Pero kumikita na sila ng kumikita ng malaki kasi pinabayaan po natin. Right? So, ang plano po ng KDP, kung makaupo kami, is to get them all together, lalo na yung mga sensitive industries, alis muna kayo dyan, dito kayo. Kikita rin naman kayo, tutulungan namin kayo to develop that. Kasi kailangan natin ng steel industry, kailangan natin ng, at may halo yan na private and public. That's okay. Habang doon pa tayo. Pero may regulation lahat yan. And we will introduce laws just like the US. Kumbaga yung ginawa ni Franklin Roosevelt na about the banking laws. Kalimutan, Glass-Steagall. Yung Glass-Steagall law na hindi yung bangko hindi pwedeng kunin yung pera niyo sa bangko nila at ilagay sa stock market. Bawal yun. We will separate that, the commercial and speculative part. Investment banking separate from. We will also do anti-monopoly. We will also do RICO, racketeering. There are many laws na pwedeng natin i-apply from the US na ginagawa nila. You have to keep in mind, bawat bansa may tinatawag na oligarchy. At yung mga patriotikong lumalaban dyan, kasama po natin lahat yan. Kasi lumalaban din sila para sa kanilang welfare. And we have to support that. Hindi lang po tayo dito sa Pilipinas. So that's a policy that's universal that we can apply. Pero maganda yun. That's a good question. Sige. More? Okay. Marilyn Loyors, magandang gabi po. Bienvenido Tan. Man is not an animal. Hallelujah. To God be the glory. Okay. Benjamin Gutierrez, magandang gabi po mga katipon. Mabuhay. Lourdes Scout, good evening sa itos watching from Accra City, West Africa. Noong time po ng 96 ay pinataasan ng sahod ng bawat tao ni Bill Clinton. That time, isa na po ako sa nakatanggap. Happy kami, middle class ka pa, lower income man lahat. Lahat po yan ay nabigyan ng increase sa sahod. Sige, meron pa ba? Okay. I just want to say, in terms of, again, we have to look at what economics is. Yung economics po, hindi sa pera yan. It is what a country or a system can do for the benefit of its people. Okay, so you have to look at, alala po natin that in Weimar Germany po, nagkaroon ng hyperinflation. Ibig sabihin, imprenta sila ng imprenta ng pera dahil hindi sila makaproduce. Sira na yung ekonomiya. Sinira yung ekonomiya nila after World War I. Tapos yung Versailles Treaty, kinuna nila yung mga productive aspects of Germany. So shortly after that, nagka-hyperinflation na. Imprenta sila ng imprenta. Marami kang hawak na pera. Pero yung value ng pera, lumiliit at lumiliit. Hanggat may litrato na dala-dala yung isang sakong pera sa store, wala namang tinapay. Aanuhin mo yung pera. Diba? Hindi mo naman makakain yung pera. Money is only as good as what it can buy. In other words, mas valuable pa yung physical economy sa pera on top of it. Ang situation natin ngayon in the world is nagiging mas valuable pa yung pera kaysa sa goods, which is wrong. Kailangan baliktarin natin. Okay. Sam Ross, good evening po, KDP. Just to emphasize that. Kung ang sahod mo tinaasan, sabi mo Presidente Duterte, lahat ng sahod natin tataas natin ng 1 million pesos a month. Bawat yung sahod ng government workers. Right? Wow, 1 million pesos a month. Ang ganda na. Yan. Okay. Pero, ang presyo ng isang manok, isang kilong manok, 100,000 pesos. Ang isang sakong bigas, 50,000 pesos. Gulay, 50,000. Edi ubos yung 1 million mo. So wag natin tignan yung pera as a value. Wala pong value yan. Arrangement lang yan. Okay? It's what it can buy is the more important thing. So how do you fix it? How do you fix that side of it? Ang ginagawa ng eksperto, mga dalubhasan natin na nasa NEDA, binibilang nila yung value ng pera. So pag kulang, hihiram sila. Ito, okay na to. Magkakalculate sila. Okay na to, okay. Habang yung tao namamatay dahil sa gutom, dahil sa hirap, dahil sa sakit. Walang connect. Yan ang tinatawag na econo-quacks. Kahit hindi, wala po kaming degree sa economics, kami ni chairman, bakit kami pa may solusyon? Diba? Okay. Virginia Malonzo, good evening po sa Itos at KDP from Pasig. Good evening. RJ! Senator RJ, mabuhay ka. Mabuhay ka rin, RJ. Mailing, good evening po. Mel Elizaldo, good evening po. Salamat po sa mga makabuluhang impormasyon. Tunay po na kailangan natin bansa ang KDP. Mabuhay po kayo. Salamat, Mel. Manuel Sobre Vega. GNP still accurate method of development but with different meaning. Please put it up, Brooks. Gutom na Pilipino. Tama. Go ahead. Please raise it. A better quality of life for the society should be the policy of government to propel the country to first world status. Meron pa ba si Manuel? Okay. No, yeah, exactly nga. When you say first world and third world, again, these are terms given to us by the World Bank and the IMF. Okay, dapat hindi na natin, yung sa amin palagay, hindi na dapat natin kinokompara. Ang sinasabi natin, ano ba ang ekonomiya ng Pilipinas? What is our relative potential population? Why? What is the relative to another country? Potential, ano pwede natin gawin? Population. Okay. So if our population is 100 million, okay, what do we need to produce for that to survive na maganda? Not just survive na parang at the level of animals, but the level of human beings. That you will be able to apply your God-given gifts to be able to improve the economy. Just like man, yung example ko dun sa una is hunting and gathering, tapos napaisip na-discover nila yung agriculture, guminawa buhay nila, mas maraming tao, mas maraming nag-iisip. They discovered wood, coal, then they discovered oil, dumadami at dumadami. Any graph that has increasing population, ibig sabihin, yung relative potential population density is also increasing. Kaya gusto ng mga oligarko, mga deep state at yung mga World Bank, tsaka itong mga WHO, depopulation, ayaw nila mag-develop ang tao. Gusto nila, konti lang ang magme-may-ari ng buong mundo. Yan ang opposite. Okay, so that's what we're saying sa KDP. Kaya confident ako, yan mga presidentiables natin, lahat ng mga tumatakbo, wala silang iibahing economic policy. Sabihin nila, corruption. Nandun na tayo, may corruption. Pero corruption is also not the cause, but is a symptom of the real cause. Okay? Sira po yung sistema kasi hindi na tayo nag-i-invest para lumaki. Kaya nabubulok. Pag nabubulok, yung mga tao nagugutom, hindi sila makatawid ng maganda. So, they are tempted to do corruption. Pero pag nagde-develop ka, you strengthen the institutions of government. You have a national economic development program for 50 years. And then you need to build great projects around the Philippines, dams, nuclear power plants, rail, lahat. we will need the Filipinos, lahat ng mga OFW, engineers natin, lahat, babalik yan kasi maraming trabaho. And when you're able to give them, pag yung trabaho maganda, okay, pag yung cost of living mababa, hindi kailangan mag-corrupt. Di ba ho? Pag mababa ang cost ng gamot, pag mababa na ang cost ng pagkain, kuryente, tubig, basic necessities po. Pag gumiginhawa ang buhay, hindi dahil lumalaki ang sweldo mo, gumiginhawa lang yung buhay kasi mas magaan. Mas hindi ka matetempt o tutuksuin ng corruption. Yun lang po yun. Yan ang pananaw po na. Pag ang bulok ang sistema, lahat hindi, hirap ng buhay, ganun talaga. Diba? Maghahanap ka at maghahanap ng tao hanggang kahit kapit sa patalim. Ngayong Pasko, tignan mo, tataas yung crime rate natin kasi gutom ang mga tao. That's what's happening. Nothing's improving. Kahit may cash ka, ginawa ni Pinoy, conditional cash transfer, one-time bayad. Anong magawa? Yun lang yun. Okay. Ronald Nanoy, good evening sa ito at sa lahat ng taga-subaybay watching here from Santo Tomas, Batangas. Tim Silva, hello, good evening everyone. Melchor Ermino, good evening sa KDB sa ito at Sir Butch watching from Las Piñas. Marcel, hello from Finland. Wow. Finland. Raf XB, it is obvious why the country is being suppressed. We know that, but it cannot be held back forever. The truth will surely set this country free. Yes, I believe so. Thank you, Raf. John Maverick Balabala. Good evening po, Katipanidos, the gift of EDSA Revolution. 86, privatization, all deregulation, economic liberalization. Common denominator giving the public utilities back to oligarchs. Come election next year, we Filipinos should use our critical thinking. KDP is the only party with long-term economic program based on principles and ideas, not of convenience and personal. It is correct. I'd like to comment also dito sa EDSA, itong 86. What really happened there was a takeover of the international banks of the Philippines. They took over the Philippines because when Corazon Aquino, when Marcos was forced out and Corazon Aquino took over, yung economic policies natin totally binigay na sa mga World Bank, IMF, lahat na, at sa tinatawag natin na mga oligarko sa ibang bansa. Na hindi po natin nakikita, hindi po natin alam kung sino sila, hindi yan lalabas. Kami alam namin kung sino-sino yung mga yan at ano yung mga corporations, pero binigay yung buong ekonomiya. Kaya pababa ng pababa ang antas ng buhay as we go. At si Ramos, si Erap, Gloria, Pinoy, and now Duterte, hindi nila pinalit yan. Meron silang ginawa, like see our current administration, they had a lot of projects, a lot of infra, but they did not change fundamentally the course of the economy. Kontrolado pa rin ng mga bankero, kontrolado pa rin ng mga oligarko sa ibang bansa ang ekonomiya. And they dictate our own economic policy. That's what happened lang in 86. So yung mga sinasabi, Marcos versus Aquino, gano'n, hindi. You have to look at sino yung kalaban. At ang kalaban ng namumuno sa atin ngayon, kalaban ng lahat. Hindi siya maka-Marcos, Aquino, o Duterte, o ERAP, or whatever. Kalaban ng buong bayan ng Pilipino. Kasi ang gusto nila, tuloy ang ligaya nila. Tuloy ang pagbayad ng utang, tuloy ang pagtaas ng bilihin kasi kumikita sila sa stock market. Yan ang kalaban natin. Okay. Okay. Says Ramiro, walang binatbat ang mga katunggali ni Butch sa Presidential 2022 tungkol sa economic plan. Palagay ko mananalo si Butch Valdes for President 2022. In terms of ideas po, says Ramiro, you are correct. Panalo na po si Chairman Butch. Talaga. Kung ang eleksyon ay based on ideas, panalo na po ang KDP. Okay. Ramon Carillo, obligado. Kaya naghihirap mga magsasaka at bansa sa panahon ng komunistang dilawan kasi ayaw talaga nila umasenso ang mamamayan at pagsasaka upang marami ang mahikayat nila na magrebelde. Tulad ng pag-uutulong nila sa mga aktivista na scholar ng bayan. Correct. Again, pagbulok ang sistema, madaling i-corrupt yung tao. Pagpatay yung ekonomiya, pahirap ng pahirap, madaling i-corrupt, magaling lokohin ng tao. And not just for the communists, pero yung mga kasama natin na nag-i-invest sa mga money-making scam. 'Di ba? Ng mga ibang pastor, 'di ba? Nagbibigay sila ng pera doon. Oh, money-making kasi hirap ang buhay. At ang sasabihin nila sa inyo, magkakapera ka dahil sa Diyos. Parang mali naman. Okay? I think God has a better plan than just making money. God's concern is not money. I think that's obvious. Freddy Oridina, President. Benjamin Salazar Rosero, magandang buhay po. Ying Yang Din, mabuhay KDP. Ricardo Limse, mga Patriots, kumisya tayo lahat at i-share natin itong programa ng KDP. At sana, Sir Butch, ay maggabayan na ating ama dito ang isang paraan ng ama na mananalo mabuti laban sa mga masasama. Agree, Ricardo. Okay. Well, that's it for our messages tonight. Again, salamat sa lahat ng tumatangkilik sa ating programa. And then thank you for giving your thoughts and your questions. Magandang usapan na naman every Sunday. So with that, I'd like to thank our staff and crew, si Roxanne and si Ver and si Kathy from KDP. I'd like to greet our chairman tonight. He's listening also, Senator RJ and the others. Please, yung mga programa natin sa Facebook, ha? I think every day meron na tayong KDP News, meron na tayong Talakaya Bayan, tuloy-tuloy pa rin. And as we keep going, laban lang po tayo. Keep pushing your ideas. Hindi lang po pansarili natin yung mga ideya natin. If you think we have good ideas, ikalat niyo po. Yun ang responsibilidad ng mga patriotiko. Right? Mga patriots, that's our responsibility. We have to save this nation. Wala na po tayong ibang chance. We have to do it already. Okay? So, that's it. Teka muna. I will get yung extra natin. Okay. Sa ngalan po ng ating mga katipon dito sa Ating Katipunan at sa magagaling na staff ng TZXL Radio Nationwide, kami po ay pansamantalang nagpapaalam at nagpapasalamat na sinamahan niyo po kami ngayon. Ang oras de peligro ng ating bayan at pambuhay. Dito sa Ating Katipunan. Salamat sa staff and crew ng DZXL and staff and crew of KDP. Mabuhay po kayo. Hanggang sa linggo po muli, mga katipon, 7 to 9 p.m. Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat.